This is the program for the Australian water polo community, especially during these very, very difficult times, focusing largely on refereeing, but also on all other aspects and personalities within our favourite sport. My name is Ian Trent, and today we have a new time slot, especially designed for a very, very special guest. But first, joining me is today's fantastic panel. Australian Water Polo Referees Director and the former FINA referee himself from Sydney, Mr. Phil Bauer. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Ian. Good to be here at lunchtime.
Yes, it is.
And really looking forward to the show today.
Absolutely. We all are, and you're a very happy boy when the Roosters win, which seems to be every week. Now, not even arguably Australia's top referee, and certainly its most decorated whistleblower, is from Melbourne. Happy Melbourne right now, isn't it, Danny Flav? G'day there, mate.
Thanks, Minnie. Yes, it's absolutely fantastic. We can't go anywhere. We're stuck in here. All roads are closed to Melbourne.
As we said, at least you've got the footy.
We've got the footy, yes.
You don't have anything to watch.
4 or 5 nights a week now. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic, and when we all Magpies win, it's even better. We won't mention the week before, shall we?
Like each week as it comes, mate. Take each week as it comes.
It's a semi-long season. And the former Australian men's team coach and now junior men's team coach. And I'll tell you, he is from the nation's capital, but he's up on the north coast. Welcome, John Fox. Where are you, Foxy?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ian. We're travelling back school holidays at the moment, so we've been up to a nice little village, Evans Head, up in northern New South Wales for a week, and just working our way back to Canberra. No rush to get back until next week, so we've stopped in at Taree for a night. And unlike Danny, we can get down to the beach, and the surf at Old Barra has been amazing.
This is Trent's hometown, a very nice place indeed. You'd be happy about those Bombers. Go Dons!
Yeah, well, one game behind, but one game in hand, so they're doing well at the moment.
We're going really well. Okay, now we thrive on our audience questions, and if you've got a question for our special guest, Adam Krikorian, today, you just click on the tab at the bottom of your screen, which I've just done, and you can just zap in a question and we will do our best to air it, and Adam will do his best to answer it. And if you've got any other questions for refereeing questions for Danny or Phil, absolutely go for it. Now, our email and feedback site is Whistleblower, or our address is whistleblower@gmail.com, and our Instagram account, Whistleblower Polo. In fact, that's it before Whistleblower Polo. Hashtag who is TWB, the whistleblower. So there it is, all on your screen, right? But immediately, let's get some questions in there on our question box for our very, very special guest. Well, I thought one World Championship was pretty good, and I'm sure Isvan was absolutely delirious with one Olympic title. Well, this man, he's got 2 Olympic titles. I think he's got 3 World Championship gold, plus multiple FINA World Cups. He can't count them. Pan American Games gold medals, more collegiate championships than you can poke a stick at, and much, much more. He's the dominant US women's team head coach, joining us from Los Angeles, Manhattan Beach, I believe. And it's a very good morning to Adam Krikorian. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Ian. Gentlemen, thanks for having me. It's certainly my pleasure to be here. It's an evening, Sunday evening, my time. So good evening, good morning.
I don't know what to do, but thanks for joining us and foregoing whatever it is. Now, we can't get away from it, Adam. I'm not talking about Donald Trump. We can't get away from him, but we can't get away from that rotten pandemic. How are you personally handling it?
Well, personally, that's, you don't want to get into the personal stuff. For me, actually, in a lot of ways, it's obviously it's devastating over here as it is in a lot of countries. But on a personal level, it's in some ways it's been kind of nice. Honestly, you don't, as a coach, and when you're traveling and you're so immersed in something for so long, you don't get a whole lot of time to spend with the family. So spending some time with my wife and my two kids has been a blessing in disguise, and the silver lining through this. But there's also certainly some anxiety and some stress. I feel for our athletes really more than anything. As everyone can attest, I think there's still a little bit unknown as to what's going to happen in the future. And I think, none of us like uncertainty. We like certainty. And as it relates to Olympic Games moving forward, who knows? To me, it's a crapshoot whether that's going to. Hopefully, we'll keep cross our fingers, and hopefully everything ends up being okay. But I just feel really bad for the athletes. It's been a tough run, but I think water polo. If anyone has can handle something like this and handle adversity, it's water polo athletes. Whether you're from Australia or from the U.S. or from somewhere else, I think we're all pretty tough, not just physically but also mentally, and we'll get through this, and hopefully we'll get through this better on the other side.
And how is the sport handling it? I mean, is there any water polo at all at the moment?
Well, our team's been training for the last 4 weeks. So we were shut down for, I don't know, what is it, 2.5, 3 months. And we've started back. We were talking earlier before we came on live. It's really difficult to, at least here in California, for some pools to open up. That's probably the biggest hurdle. And then obviously the safety is as well, and justifiably so. But we're fortunate. We train on a military base, and they were kind enough to let us on, as long as we have a 20-page protocol list, and we're all wearing masks on the pool deck, and we're going in groups and staying socially distanced, and really keeping things, and it's outside, which is beneficial as well. And I think it's super safe, and it's very low in terms of the intensity level and the amount that we're doing, but it's something. And I think it depends, our country's so big, people forget about that sometimes. So like, we're out here in Los Angeles. Northern California is, a 5-6 hour drive from us. Some of those pools have started to open. Back out in Florida, everything was open. I think it still is, although they're hitting their highest number of cases. So we're a bit of a mixed bag here in the States, if you look at our entire country.
Adam, you said, so you've been training on the base. Is your whole squad located in California, in Los Angeles? And do you have other players from outside that are living there?
Yeah, no, so it doesn't always work like this, but in the last year leading up to the Olympic Games, wherever they are, there's an understanding that we're going to go into what we call residential training. So they come from all over. They have apartments, and they've all been living there, and they have their leases. Most of their leases end here at the end of this month, because we were supposed to, right. I think actually in the next 2 days, we're supposed to go to Tokyo. We were supposed to go to Tokyo. So they're all local, and it makes it easy. And some live, their families are local, and some even actually live with their families. So that makes it easy for them.
So Adam, do the players express any worries about training at this time, at the moment? Do they?
Yeah, they do. We've had a lot of talks. It's really difficult to manage this. It's difficult to manage because we're having conversations like this over Zoom, so we don't even get to see each other, and it's tough to have really open and honest conversations over Zoom. But then, again, just kind of like our country, I think everyone feels a little bit different. There's some people who are nervous, some people who don't care as much. There's some people who live with people and parents, or maybe see grandparents, who are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And, I think the big message that we all try to convey is like, we almost need to take, like, the worst case is the bad term, but we need to take the person who's most fearful and the most vulnerable position, and that's the position that we need to take as a team, to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. But it's been interesting, honestly, with the team dynamics, because there's certainly a little bit of a different feel depending on who you are and maybe how you're even raised or where you're from.
Yeah. Yep.
The players, sorry, John, the players that relocate to be with you for a year,
Yep.
how are they funded? Are they funded by USA Water Polo, or have they got to do it themselves?
So they are mostly funded through the United States Olympic Committee. So we, every year we submit. I'm sure it's not so much different from Australia and the AIS. There, we submit a plan, a high performance plan, to the USOC, and then they, depending on kind of how they feel we stand in terms of potential to medal, depends on how much funding we get from them. So most of the dollars come from them. USA Water Polo. We have two more things that are working for us that are actually really new. USA Water Polo in the last year, I'm really proud of the organization for making a bold move to, and a deserved move to, also set some funds aside to help supplement what they're already making from the USOPC. And I think we are close to, I don't even know if I should be saying this, but I think we're close to securing a little bit more funding from the LA 84 Foundation, which was a foundation created from the 1984 Olympics when we had it there. And it was, I think, maybe one of the only Olympics that actually brought in money, that actually was at the surplus. And they used a lot of that money to help support all the NGBs. And we've had a few former athletes who've done a great job of managing that money, and some of that, I believe, will be coming to the athletes as well. But we're not talking millions of dollars. We're not talking hundreds and thousands of dollars. It's still not what we would always like for our athletes.
Right.
And
So
so,
all
Adam,
these athletes would give up college for a year, so they'd red shirt if they're at college.
Yeah, so they all redshirted this year, and it seems nothing's entirely official yet, but it seems like they're probably gonna, unfortunately, this is the one of many unfortunate circumstances, that they're probably gonna have to redshirt one more year so they can train through the next Olympics.
yeah, that was leading into my question. So you said that these players, their housing lease and everything is up in 2 days' time. So is it just accepted that it's going to be rolled over for another 12 months, or have you got a bit of work to do with that to organise, so that these players could?
Yeah, so we don't secure their housing. They go out. It's funny. We talk to them. I think we regularly talk to them about what they would like, and if they'd like to live together. And a lot of these women just love the freedom to be able to live where they want to live. So they're the ones that they know the funding that they're going to get, and it's up to them to go out and find their apartment or condo, or maybe guest house, or live with their parents, and they do that all on their own. And I think those that have contracts or leases that are coming up, they're either just re-upping their lease through the next year, or it's month by month, or they're moving to a new spot.
This will fit in. Adam, I've got a question from the audience. Hi, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if you can answer this or not, but will your team undergo a reselection process because the Olympics have been pushed back, or will you stick with the current group and maximise training time?
Well, it's reselection. We never selected anyone. This process, I don't know how it's done in other places, but for us, it's a very fluid process throughout the entire 4 years. And it's, you're not on the team until you're on the team. Our plan was, trying to think back now, our plan was to announce the official Olympic team on May 14th, I believe it was. Obviously, I think we were 5 or 6 weeks away from that decision, but no decision was made, and now it just continues forward. I think what it looks like for our group, those that were on the team or a part of our training team moving forward, they're going to continue to move forward. And as I say to them all the time, I mean, we as a coach, my job, my responsibility is to put the best team out there. So I don't care how old you are, how young you are, where you're from, what you look like. So I think now with another year, there's certainly a possibility that we may add 1, 2, possibly 3. I can't see much more than that.
How large is your squad now?
We have 17 athletes. We have 3 goalkeepers and 14 field players. It's a good number. I'm not big on, especially when we get down here into the last year. This is a progression through those 4 years, and if you look at it through those 4 years, I mean, typically we start with upwards 30 to 40 people in kind of our pool, and people that we're looking at and interested in and being a part of training or competition. And then as we move along this Olympic cycle, we start to cut it down and be a little bit more narrow. And then this last year, I think we always stay within, I'd say on average, like 16 to 19 people. To me, if you start having too many people, it becomes distracting. Those that are in don't get enough time and attention that they need. And, it doesn't mean occasionally we might sprinkle someone in to give them some experience, but that's this last year. You just kind of go with the group that's gotten you to that point, and you let them kind of fight it out for spots.
So Adam, will you typically lose anybody who might just say it's just too long, I'm going to retire?
We may. I've said this from the beginning. It's difficult when you stop something. You can say this about anything. When you stop something for an extended period of time, it's difficult to get back into it. And I think we all know how difficult the sport of water polo is. I heard a lot of interviews of a lot of people. You see the NBC interviews or the interviews on the web about, same dream, different year. No problem, and all these athletes are talking about. That's a bunch of BS, in my opinion. This is not easy. These people, I mean, again, they're like 5 or 6, and there's so much effort and so much energy that goes into preparing. We know what it takes to be a great water polo player, and the time and the effort that's required is unlike any other sport. So to think that they have to do that again for another year it's exhausting, just thinking about it. But so I wouldn't be shocked if we lose a couple. And I've just never been someone who's going to beg someone to stay. Like, if you want to be a part, we would love you to be a part. But if you don't want to be a part, we certainly don't want to force anyone to be there. That doesn't create the environment, the culture that we're looking for.
So Adam, is there any talk from the players or yourself that maybe the Olympics might not happen? Do you go down that road, or you sort of try and stay away from that, and you're all, we're 100%, we're going next year?
I think if anyone says they're 100%, they're fooling themselves. I think we learn as athletes and as coaches and people in sport, we learn to kind of set our expectations at the right level. And there's certainly been some talk within our team about, hey, we don't know what's ahead. We don't even know what's given tomorrow. I mean, when you and sometimes when you see some of the things that you see, at least in our country, it just makes you actually appreciate today and getting an opportunity tomorrow. So we don't talk about it a whole lot. It's something that certainly that pops up, but there's no sense worrying about it when we really don't know. No one knows.
No, fair enough.
Off you go, Phil.
Phil,
Keep showing me this picture of me just getting dominated by my team here.
Yeah, a few large girls there pushing you in.
Show us your medals, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. Adam, let's talk about you for a minute, because we know you're a great coach. You've won a lot of gold medals, but no one in Australia probably knows how you started. Like, as a player, let's say a 14-year-old boy. Where did you start? How did you progress to where you are now?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think, believe it or not, as a 14-year-old boy, I was probably a half a year or a year shy from starting playing water polo. So I grew up a swimmer, and I grew up playing every other sport you could possibly imagine, at least in the States. I wasn't playing cricket or Australian rules football, sorry guys, but I was playing basketball and football and baseball and soccer and every. I had two older brothers that both swam and played water polo, and I just kind of ended up following their footsteps. So I started playing water polo when I was 15, I think my first year in high school. And back then that was a little bit more common. Now people are starting here in the States. They're starting at 8, 9 years old. My son started at 9, I think. Back then, especially up in Northern California where I grew up just south of San Francisco and Stanford area. And 15, I played water polo in high school, was deciding whether to swim or play water polo in college. And I decided to go to UCLA and play water polo. I actually played for Guy Baker, who was the coach before me. So Guy and I we spent a lot of time together. He was my coach for 4 years at UCLA, and I was really, really, really fortunate. As soon as I graduated, Guy had asked me to be his assistant coach. I had no plans to coach whatsoever. I was going to go into business and I was going to make a lot of money. That was my goal. I was going to find a good-looking wife who was actually already my girlfriend, and the rest was going to be history. But I coached for a year, and I just got hooked. I got even more hooked on the sport. I got more hooked on just helping people and helping teams and building teams. And again, I had a great mentor and Guy who kind of helped me along. And then I was I'm just been the luckiest guy in the world. I'm blessed. Guy ended up leaving UCLA to take my job right before the Olympics. I think in 1999 or 98 he started. And so, he finished up kind of coaching both, going back and forth. But after 2000 Olympics, after Sydney, he left entirely and basically handed the reins over to me. So I was a 24, 25-year-old guy, coaching both the men's and women's teams at UCLA, just in over my head. But and then I was there for 10 years, and I was really lucky to have some good mentorship and Guy, and have some great coaches. My time at UCLA was an enormous part of my development. There's two things I would say just about my coaching development. One is my youth coaches on all levels. My swim coach was one of the most inspirational guys that I've ever had. My baseball coach and my basketball coach was my best friend's father, who was just an awesome coach who just emphasized the fundamentals, but we had just a tremendous amount of fun when we did it. So that kind of inspired me to be a coach. And when I was at UCLA, I was surrounded by amazing coaches in every sport there possibly could be, starting with the great coach John Wooden. I don't know how many people in Australia are familiar with John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach, in my mind, the best coach ever to live. And when you have access to someone like Coach Wooden, you're just inspired immediately. So I've been really, really fortunate to be surrounded by the people I've been surrounded with, and it's put me obviously in really good positions, and it's led me to this position here today.
Right. Thanks, Mark. Can we turn on to the rules?
Sure.
Rules real quick, because
That's a hard turn.
Yeah. So you're on International Rules Committee as a coach. Is this correct? An advisor?
I don't know. We're not necessarily called the Rules Committee. We're a coaches committee. So Elvis and myself, Kameni, Porovich, Justin from Canada. Yeah, we're it's not necessarily rules. We're coaches committee. So our job is to look at everything, not just the rules. It's actually not really the rules. It's more about trying to get some feedback from the coaches, and then give that information to FINA to try to help them make the best decisions possible, whether it's locations of things, practice times, rules. Certainly, obviously, always love to come up.
Right. The new rules, in particular the penalty rule. Your feelings on it?
Yeah, my feeling is one, we're moving in the right direction, right? I think the idea behind the penalty is that, we didn't want to do, and Danny can speak to this better than I, we don't want, if someone has a great chance to score, and we've all seen it, and their ball's in their hand, you can basically rip this person's arm out of their socket, right? And it's a no call, and they're about to score, right? And everyone up in the stands is saying, "Oh my gosh, his arm is bleeding because his arm came out of his socket." Okay, that doesn't make any sense. And then we see the referee do one of these, right? So we're moving in the right direction. In my mind, is like, you have to reward the person who worked to get that position. I've been a proponent, and it maybe it's a little bit out there. I don't think it's a little bit out there. I've been a proponent. I think it's a really difficult thing to call for the officials now, because now they want they want to let you score, but yet at the same time, if you don't score, they're going to wonder why you didn't call it, right? And so as an official, you're screwed. I mean, I feel bad. I really feel bad for the officials. What I would love to see is, why can't you have both? And my idea and suggestion was similar. I don't know what it's like. There's actually a rule in soccer where they let play continue on, and it's kind of a delayed offsides. In hockey, we see it a lot. There's a delayed penalty call. My idea is like, and I haven't thought this through entirely. You guys tell me, and the public can tell me. I could be wrong, but why not? When as soon as you see that penalty, why not just raise your hand, swallow your whistle, and so we give them still the opportunity to finish. And if they finish, it's a goal, and we go to center lineup. If they don't, hey, I made it clear that I raised my hand. Now it's a penalty, right? And so we let the action happen, and this way, there's not. It's much easier for the referees, and I think the coaches are gonna. And the players would like it as well.
Can I jump in as a coach, Adam? It's so refreshing to hear. It's exactly what I've been talking about. We have a game called rugby in Australia, and that's the advantage rule as well. Exactly what you say, hand up. Players know if they don't score, they're going to get the ball back for a penalty situation. So before the referees have their say, from a coaching perspective, absolutely 100%. And I hope voices like yourself and they listen to you and take notice of it.
I'll add one more situation that I see sometimes is like, maybe a team is on offense, and there's a 2-player zone, and they're passing the ball back and forth, and maybe it looks like one person's got a really good chance to score, and on the opposite side of the pool, someone is going on a drive, and the defense is just mauling the person. I mean, it's just mauling the person. Now, as a referee, you're kind of taught, ignore this mauling over here and let them shoot. So what happens when we ignore the mauling? Guess what's going to happen? It's just going to escalate, right? And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And so again, we're not putting our officials in a place where they can actually have success. It's the same thing: hand up, ejection, right? And then you let the play continue, and then as soon as there's a foul or there's a shot, okay, now there's an exclusion.
Yeah. I think
I'm happy for people to push back. You know, I haven't thought about it a ton, but this is. Go ahead, Danny. Sorry.
You know, I think that both suggestions, Adam, are absolutely fantastic, because we are explained or told to let that go because the shot was going to come. And as you said, it does escalate very quickly, and that's where we get double ejections or penalties and all foul plays out for the game. So, you know, that idea you have is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say to it too is that, you know, as a coach, I know there's some people who get a little bit of an inside water, and I'm kind of hoping you call a penalty. Like, yeah. I don't want you to let them finish because I know the chances of them finishing. Yeah, so there's a little bit of that as well. Yeah. But again, I want to go back to my first point. Is I think they're moving in the right direction. I think it's better than this whole idea of like, no, you can do whatever you want to the person. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think they're trying to make it easier for the referees and the coach and players to know what's going on. But then, as you said, then they've brought in this, let's give them an advantage to see what happens. And if we give the advantage and say your player then misses, you look at the referees and complain to the referee with us going, well, we're playing advantage. So I'm all for myself. I'm all for just calling the penalty when they're grabbed.
Yeah.
No, that's easy. Everyone knows what's going on. Simple.
I mean, at World Championships with Joe, I mean that it would have been a penalty, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I don't know. Maybe we want maybe the drama is good and bring more attention. I don't know. That's like the American way. It seems like nowadays, but just it'd be more straightforward.
Yeah, I find it hard to explain the rule to a young referee coming up, you know, who has very little experience. And you explain, well, yeah, that's a penalty, but we don't want you to call it. We want you to play on and see if they can score. And if they can't, well, we'll just keep playing. It doesn't make any sense to a novice referee, you know, and it makes it so much harder and harder for them to. I think people would just walk away if those are the sort of things they've got to try and do.
Yeah.
And just from our audience, I bet you it's Gail from Tamworth, but it's just Gail, and she makes a very good point, not only about the coaches, not only about the players, but what about the spectators? Your ideas, Adam. It's, you know, it's a spectators' game as well, and would make it so much clearer. As John said, as it happens in rugby.
Yeah. Are you asking me a question about the spectators to make it more spectator friendly?
Well, yeah. Are there any other ways we could make it a little bit more spectator friendly?
I think in my mind, you can argue, and I can make cases for both, like the really physical game and then also the free flowing game. I'm personally a proponent of just a fast pace up and down, so that's going to require probably some more things being called. To me, a lot of if you talk about spectators, it has more to do with everything outside of the game. So it has everything to do with creating the right environment with music and with drinks, and you know it's the spectacle itself. Like I've been to, you know, here in the States, I go to basketball games, and you know, if you go to an NBA basketball game, it is, I mean, it's entertainment. It's not basketball. I mean, I would say the basketball is kind of boring, to be honest, a lot of the times. So why people go is like to enjoy the entertainment and the spectacle of it. And I'm not the one to give advice there. That's definitely not my angle, but I think that's a big part of it. And I think everyone in water polo has talked about that, the promotion of the sport, the marketing of the sport. This day and age, like how we market the sport and knowing kind of what our brand is as a water polo, being very clear with that brand and then pushing that out to the audience is so key. If you're not doing that on a marketing level and a promotion level, now you're going to get your butt kicked. And that's where I think most of our improvements go.
So,
I mean, there's little things like there's little things in terms of like, I think a lot of the rules that have been implemented are positive. If not almost all of them are positive. I mean, I love, playing the ball where it lies. You don't have to always throw the ball back. It makes it more fast paced. I love bringing the goalie out. The ball's in play after the foul outside of 6 meters. So there's not this, you can foul and drop and everyone else just presses the living, out of people. It's definitely a faster, the 20-second shot clock I think is great. It's definitely a faster paced game. And I think it forces people to be a little bit more versatile as athletes. And I think it's more fun to watch, but now the difficulty is in my mind, and Danny, you guys could argue this, but like, I just think it's really difficult to be consistent across the world, right? You're trying to, it's already a very difficult sport to referee. And then to be able to disseminate that information to everyone, so everyone's refereeing in the same type of way or close to it is challenging. I think the TWPC has gotten a lot of grief before in the past, and maybe deservedly so. But these guys have a tough job, man. And they put in a lot of work to try to keep this thing going. So I think we also need to be a little bit easy on those folks as well, and we need to all kind of work together. I'm kind of going on a tirade here a little bit, but like we're a small sport. We're not basketball. We're not rugby even. So in my mind, so if you imagine a team, if you're a small team and maybe you're less talented as a team, you have to be harder workers. You have to work better together as a group. And to me, these are the things like we need to focus on as a sport more so than anything. You would like the goalie coming out because your number one goalie's got a rocket of an arm, absolute rocket. So you would love that new rule. I do. It's just fun. It's fun. And yes, I'm biased because Ashley's got. I mean, Ashley can throw the ball. Yeah, we've done the radar gun, with everyone, and my whole team gets so angry. They get so pissed because they're all up there throwing as hard as they can, and then Ashley steps up and just. And she beats everyone. But that's certainly part of it. But it creates some fun. I mean,
it does.
I think we've done it. I don't know. We've probably done it 10 times. But the first 5 times we did it, we got scored on 3 of the 5 going the other way. And I don't think the crowd's ever been so excited, after we shoot and we miss, and Ashley's sprinting back to the goal. It's definitely adds some excitement.
Yeah, it certainly does. So you think, Adam, that to get it more even across the world as referees, do you think we should be more technical? Do you think that would help? Or do we need to let it play as we've been doing now?
I think we needed a little bit more technical in my mind. It's difficult, and this is the tough thing, is like anytime you decide to go a different path, it might not look very pretty right away. But I think in my mind, I think we need to commit to it and give it a shot and be more technical. And the players will adapt. As players and coaches, we're trying to snake the rules as much as we possibly can. So you can't let us get away with it. Just be technical, and I think it would be a easier to make it clear kind of what those rules are and help for that consistency.
Fair enough.
Cool. Adam, what's your relationship like with with referees? I don't know how many games you would have coached. How many red cards have you got?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Phil. I've only gotten a red card one time. I've been coaching internationally for 11 years, and over those 11 years, I don't know how many games I've coached, probably hundreds of games, and ironically, the only person who's given me a red card is the guy over here to my left, Danny.
Surely not. Surely I'm not the only person.
No, I'm not joking. Internationally, I've only gotten a red card one time.
And Adam, can you explain why?
Yeah, to your defense, two things that are important to know. One is that I deserved it because I booted a cone to about half tank, and I probably said some bad things to Danny. And then the second thing is, to be perfectly honest, I was a little hungover, and I needed to be. I wanted to be out of there. I mean, we had qualified 2 nights before. I tried to get thrown out of the game before in the semifinal. So I certainly deserve it. And there's nothing better sometimes as a coach when you're just losing your mind and you look over and the ref is just in typical. This is what I appreciate about Danny. It's just he is just at the same level the whole time, and Danny's just looking at me, and I'm flipping out, and he's like, sorry, mate. And he gives me the card.
And that's exactly what I said too. I said, sorry, mate, you got to go.
Yeah. And when someone says sorry, mate, and they kind of have a little bit of a like I feel bad for you, but like sorry, like you can't get upset. It's just like you just take your thumps and move on.
So another time, Adam, I think it was in Barcelona for World Champs. I think you girls were playing Spain, maybe. I can't remember. I really can't remember. But I paid a foul outside 7, of course, to one of your girls. I turned away. The player interfered, stole the ball, and you started yelling at me again. I've just gone, sorry, Adam, I turned away. And you looked at me dumbfounded going, oh, okay, that's as far as it went.
And I can't tell you, I mean, this is the one thing I say to referees, especially the younger referees, is like, understand how passionate we are, right? And like, this is our job, and we get really emotional in it. Like, that's part of our. To me, the referee's job isn't to be emotional, and it's so easy for a ref to diffuse the situation by making a comment, by just saying, hey, you know what, it's such a hard. I mean, I don't know if there's a sport that's more difficult to officiate. I think we all have officiated in practices and trainings where we miss stuff all the time. So when someone like yourself says, "Hey, sorry, like I might have missed that," what are you gonna say? And if you do have something to say, then you're just a jerk in my mind. So it just diffuses the situation so quickly.
Okay.
Adam, what's your role with referees in the US? Do you assist them with their development and their pathway to international refereeing?
No, not too much. I mean, they're always asking me my opinions. Sometimes they'll come to our training and they'll officiate. I would love to be a little bit more involved, but it's tough to find the time to be able to do that. I think that the tough thing I have with is we have a lot of officials who, when you're officiating, when we're watching a game, a lot of times we're scouting, or maybe we're even in practice, and we're watching our team, like, right? So it's difficult for me I got the coaching brain on. I'm not looking at it from an official standpoint. I might complain about something here and there, but the overall, it's difficult for me sometimes. And I always say that to refs when they ask me, like, well, what'd you think? Or how did I do? And I'm like, well, maybe this year I can remember a couple instances, but to give you like a blanket grade, unless I'm looking at it just through the lens of an official, then to me, it's not fair if I give my critique.
Adam, do referees offer their services to you for training games, or do you have to ask referees to come along and help out?
We have to ask referees. Yeah, we ask. It's kind of part of if you're on the FINA A list, you're technically kind of supposed to spend a little bit of time if you're available and around when you can. It's difficult. It's difficult to find people to come to training, and we're not giving them anything or paying them anything, and there's always those that don't really come, and then there's always those that we really appreciate that are spending their time, and they just want to get better. And I mean, honestly, that's how a couple of our referees have progressed, is they'll come to some trainings, and hey, there was one guy a few years ago, it's like he was reffed a few of our games, and it's like, oh, yeah, you're good. Like, well, I've never even met you until today. Like, why aren't you part of this? And it's a neat opportunity for them.
Yeah,
I think.
Absolutely.
Audience question, Adam. Remember the water polo series in Brisbane? Our member of the audience was there. They thought it was great to watch. How do you compare the refereeing there to what you get in America or at other international events? Don't hold back.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was too. I mean, we had an American referee with us, I believe. I don't think it was too different than what we would typically see. I remember being visibly upset, but I mean, to be honest, I wasn't that upset with the officiating. I was more upset with my team and how crappy they were playing on some levels. So it's I forget. I'm blanking on his name. Young guy who reffed a couple of our games. Connor. To me, he did a good job at times, and other times he struggled in my mind. And this isn't just for us, or it could have been for Australia as well. Either way. But I'm okay with it because he's young and he's trying. I mean, he's just getting experience. So I thought it was kind of on par with who was out there and level. We can't expect someone like Connor, and not to call him out all the time, but we can't expect him to come in and ref like someone like Eddie, who's been around, has got tons and tons of experience. We need to give them a chance to grow and to learn and make mistakes and learn from it. And in that sense, it wasn't any different than what I'd see internationally or in America.
So, Adam, have you ever seen anything as funny as a coach taking the whistle off a referee and taking over?
Oh, I was wondering if you were going to ask that. That was one of my favorite moments in my 11 years coaching. It was one of my favorite, and I love Dumper. He's a great guy. We're good friends. He's an intense dude, super competitive, and yes, we had a very festive scrimmage at the military base that we trained at, and to watch him come up, and it was great. And again, like you never changed your emotion, and the one thing I remember is that I believe we got ejected 5 times in a row and got called for 5 offensive fouls in a row as well. So he certainly made his mark on that scrimmage, and I was just laughing the whole time. It was just, I wish we had it videotaped.
Okay, another question from the audience, Adam. How does the US system cope with organising officials for the Junior Olympics? With so many games happening in so many places, it must be a big challenge to get enough referees, let alone get them performing at a similar standard. Good question.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't have a great answer for it because it's a little out of my territory. But I know I want to say there's something like, I might be totally off, like 700 and something referees that you're having to coordinate amongst, what is it, 8 total days, four women's days and 4 men's days. It's the biggest tournament in the world, and it's a nightmare. We have one person who's in charge of doing that, but I don't envy that person. I'm not even sure who that person is. I don't know if it's Levon, who kind of oversees our referee development for USA water polo, or if it's someone else. But I would imagine it's more than just one person who's sitting on that grid trying to figure out who needs to be where.
Okay, another question from the audience. Great listening to you, etc., etc. I'm just trying to decipher it. We have former senior national team members, men and women, not all that keen on playing post their international career, even if they're retiring before their prime. We had one of our members, panel members, the other year or the other week, Shane Moran, putting back in. How do you get older players to stay in the game? Because there's no better mentoring than from in the water.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I think it's a challenge everywhere. You know, I think of there's you have to think of why people are going to want to do it. And in my mind, there's 2 reasons. The first being just fitness, right? People want to stay in good shape. But it's difficult in that sense because people look to other ways. They've been playing the game a long time, and it's such a difficult sport to play that it's challenging to get guys. I haven't played a game. I played my last collegiate game in 1995 and never played one after that. So it's difficult to get the men and women to be back. But the second thing is like the camaraderie in the community, and from what I've seen, and this is just from however many thousands of miles away in America. That's one thing that Australia's done a really nice job of. Is I've seen a lot of. One of my former players, former national team player Kelly Hukin, who played for me at UCLA. She's still playing. You know, I saw her when we were in Perth not too long ago, and it's amazing to see them. But you have the system to be able to do that. We don't have. There's very few masters teams and clubs. So we have a masters national championships that we have, but there's certainly not a league or anything. Some of our bigger clubs like Olympic Club and New York Athletic Club, they're basically have some alumni, but sprinkled in with some national team members, and they compete in some of the other events. But it's been a struggle for us. So I don't really have a good answer other than like we have to emphasize community and fitness. Those are the two areas that are going to get people hooked.
Just following on from that, Adam, what does a player do? Let's say Melissa Seidemann left, no, she's left college quite a while ago, but when she left college,
Yep.
What does she do to play, to stay in your national squad, to keep fit?
Well, trying to figure out when Melissa finished. Melissa finished in 2010, I believe, maybe 2011. She played in Spain for a year. She played at Sabadell for a year. So they go overseas. Otherwise, you're either going overseas and playing, or you're training with us, which doesn't necessarily happen unless it's in the summertime or certain parts of the year. We've had quite a few that have kind of latched on as assistant coaches to colleges. And so when they can do that, it's great for us because now they can train with the team as well, and kind of do what they do. And we had a few of our women do that recently, but it's been one of the big challenges. Is like, you know, we can either send them overseas, or if they don't, then they don't really have anything, or they're training on their own, and that's difficult. And that's why it's always been a challenge for us to keep players. And that's one of the big differences between the men and the women is, you know, with the men, They can obviously go overseas, but on both sides, I think it's becoming more challenging and more difficult. It certainly isn't as financially rewarding as it was before in the past. But we don't have anything for the guys, and it's more of an issue on the men's side because, you know, they're peaking usually in their late 20s. You could even argue like maybe early 30s. For the women, a lot of times on average, you're peaking in your mid 20s. So we can, you know, if someone leaves, hopefully we've done a good job on this pipeline and bringing the next people in. Whereas on the men's side, if you're not able to keep people around, then you're going to really struggle to keep up with the Serbians and the Croatians and guys who've been playing professional since they were tiny and they're, you know, in their early 30s. I mean, they're men compared to our boys.
Adam, we do have a question from the audience that related to that subject.
Yeah.
Creation of a national water polo league over there, similar to our structure, to accommodate those sorts of players. Is it? I know the men had a little go relatively recently. How realistic is that in the future?
Yeah, I think it's very realistic, and we actually do have something. You know, it probably needs to be. I think everyone will admit it. The vision and the goal would for it to be even larger, but we do have something called the National League that's comprised of, and I may be wrong here, it's like 4 or 5 weekends, tournaments and games. It actually kind of originated a little bit from Ratko Rudic when he was around, and he joined in 2001. He started this thing called the Premier League that was able to kind of draw and technically use college athletes as well as alums, and they all had certain regions, and there was a Division 1 and a Division 2. But you know, it was certainly helpful for the team back then. In our National League now, it seems like it's sufficient to keep the guys, you know, active. But we need to make that next step, I think, in my mind, at least. I'm speaking on the men's side, so I don't even feel that comfortable. But we need to make probably that next step, going from like keeping them active to really excelling. I mean, it'd be cool one day. I think we all kind of have these dreams of actually having a professional league in the States, and maybe it starts as 4 teams or 5 teams or 6 teams, and then so you're able to keep guys around, and you're able to find sponsors and people who are willing to help out financially, and we're able to get spectators that kind of bring that revenue back, and then be able to have them end up playing the European counterparts, right, or the Australians, or, you know, and I mean, how cool would that be if we could organize something like that? There's a lot of work, and I'm just kind of spitting out these big vision ideas without a whole lot of substance, but I think that'd be ideal for all of us.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Adam, could we go to your role as national coach? Not leading up to the Olympics, but let's say after Olympics. Do you get involved in development? And what's your relationship with national junior coaches?
Well, my relationship is great with at least I think it's great. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't think it's great. You know, I basically work with our high performance director, John Adu, who's just done a phenomenal job with USA Water Polo and the ODP system, and we coordinate in selecting those coaches that fill our pipeline teams, our youth team and our junior team, so on and so forth. And I would say, you know, in this last year, like as you kind of were alluding to, I don't have that much contact with them, but in the first 2 years, I have a lot more contact with the coaches and the athletes. We've been able to, you know, I'm always searching to bring the athletes even up onto my level and our level at the senior team to be able to train and practice with us. And so I'm as involved as I possibly can be. But at the same time, you know, some of my involvement is about not just developing the athletes, but it's helping and to develop and educate the coaches as well. And that's a two-way street. I learned just as much from our junior and youth coaches. They're phenomenal as they probably learned from me. And we bring them on some of our trips, right? Senior team trips, so they can kind of see how we do things, and then they can go back to their junior team or youth team and disseminate that information, and that knowledge and those experiences. Getting to watch like a Maggie Steffens and a Rachel Fatal and a Maddie Musselman play the game and train, you learn so much, not from listening to me, but more probably from watching them. And to take that back, that's really kind of where it starts. And then they, again, kind of spread that knowledge and that information out.
What
Do you
about
think
your
that?
Sorry, John, just following up from that. What about your relationship with college coaches? So do you talk to them a lot, or?
Yeah, I do, especially probably more so in the beginning. It's very similar, like in the beginning of a quad, when I'm a little bit unclear of some of the kids that I'm interested in. These college coaches end up, especially early on, they end up spending more time than I do. And I think us as coaches know that you may have a perception of a player, but you don't really know how they are as a player or as a competitor or as a teammate until you actually coach them and with them. So I rely on their thoughts and their expertise quite a bit, and certainly respect all of the coaches in our country. I'm fortunate that our women's coaches are great, and they've been very helpful to the national team, and they're excellent coaches, and so they're helping develop. This isn't just me. This isn't me and my assistant coaches. They're a part of the development process as well for all these athletes.
Yeah, Ian, I don't know if we've got much time, but just Adam, on that, do you think the coaching pathway is much different now to when you came through, and the importance of the mentor is obviously still absolutely imperative? But yeah, is it much different to what you experienced coming through the college ranks and then into the national ranks?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd actually be interested to hear your views, because it sounds like you have views on that. It'd be hard for me to answer it because I'm kind of like the spoiled child, who in some ways, I had a mentor in Guy Baker was my mentor, my water polo mentor, and I had all these other mentors at UCLA and all these other sports, and then I just kind of I literally just followed him in a lot of ways. And so I was really lucky, and I wasn't like a part of this pathway that we have now a little bit, where and we had it before, but I didn't coach. I never coached a national team. I didn't coach a youth team. I didn't coach a junior team. I didn't do any of that before I took the senior team job. So that's why I'm like, feel guilty even like trying to answer that question, because I'm just the spoiled child who comes in and takes over the best team in the world. What do you, you think it's different? Yeah.
No, I'm just asking the question. I know what we are trying to do here, and the importance of coming through. Look, we do have a coaching pathway, but it has various branches. Just how that would look for someone who's aspiring to be a national coach in America now, whether it's much different to as I said, to in the past. I think the college program plays a really important role, and you mentioned the experience you also get with the contact with other teams and some fantastic coaches there. And we've been fortunate when we did have the AIS, it was a centralized program. Just the amount of experience that you were able to draw upon from other sports was something that I think is invaluable in your coaching pathway.
I couldn't agree more. And it just allows us to think a little bit outside the box. Like we have our United States Olympic Committee does a good job of like providing these coaches education, leadership forums and things where we get to spend time. Some of my best moments have been spending time with, our women's national team volleyball coach, Krikorian, one of the best volleyball players ever to play the game. Soaking in knowledge from outside our sport is huge. And having those mentors is so important. I wish we had more opportunity and I wish I had more opportunity to go out and watch other people coach, because I think there's so much that we all can learn. The more we can do that.
So, Adam, from all accounts, you are very popular. I coached Courtney Mathewson, and she was gushing about how she loved you. But all the other people I've met say all the same stuff. You're really popular, even if you don't select them. They still love you. What is the key to, obviously, to player management on your part?
That's the first time I've ever heard that from Courtney. I'm joking. She had to deal with me for 12 years. I coached her at UCLA and then on the national team. So I don't think she always felt that way. And I don't know. I don't know if that's entirely true, to be honest. I mean, I think there's certain people who haven't had a good experience with me. I think it's, but all I know is what I try to do. And, you know, for me, like, everyone needs to be treated with respect. And I would like to think that I show people respect. I value their work, whether they're, you know, the best player or maybe trying to fight hard to work to make it. And I care about them. And I'm not saying that because, like, you can't just go out and try to care about someone. It's, I'm going to take this way back to even like my parents and how I was raised, and I was raised to care for people, no matter what. And I think that shows that I care, and it doesn't mean that they always like me, but I think they, generally speaking, I would like to think that they have respect for who I am as a person, probably more so than even who I am as a coach.
Okay, and we've had quite a few questions, from people about being a great mentor and what do you do, and I think you just answered that. Is there anything else you'd like to say about being a good mentor?
No, I think I answered it. I mean, we trying to remember this Coach Wooden poem. I'm kind of blanking spur of the moment, but ultimately it's like, I think it's not so much about what we say and to be a good mentor. It's about what we do than anything, and how we act. And listen, like, I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure I'm doing what I need to be doing, and I'm not always perfect. But I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure I'm a good example for younger coaches, and hopefully the times that I'm not a good example, hopefully they learn from those as well. And I'm willing to admit when I make mistakes, because I certainly make plenty of them, and just being humble and just trying to grow.
We can see that from this session. Exactly. Now, how long can you see, this is a question from the audience, much longer rather, can you see yourself coaching at an elite level? What's your plan?
That's a great question. I think my wife says one more Olympics, and then that's it. You know, it's funny. I swear, every time I've gone into like in Olympic Games, you kind of think that this is it, and because it's so draining and it's so exhausting, and you know, you get out on the other side, and then it's like, oh, maybe, God, that was kind of fun, actually. Maybe I'll go for it again. It's really hard for me to say. Like, I honestly try not to think about it at all. When those thoughts come into my mind, I just brush them aside, and I just try to worry about the next. And I always say, I'm just gonna try to deal with it after the next big tournament, and after the Olympics. For me, there's two things that need to happen. I need to still be passionate about it, and I still need to feel like I can grow and get better. And as it stands now, I know I can get much better. I'm much better now than I was, 8 years ago. And right now I'm still passionate about it. So until those go away, I don't see myself stopping.
Okay.
Adam, I've got one question that came to me from Kyle Atsumi, who you would know. Yep. And
Yeah.
I'll read it out. USA women have the opportunity to match the 3 straight Olympic golds and halfway to 12 straight Olympic medals of the great Hungarian men's teams. How do you like your chances?
Oh, thanks, Kyle. Kyle, that was huge. You just, throw me on the barbecue there. First of all, it's amazing that I didn't know that Hungarians had that long of a streak of medaling. I mean, that's ridiculous. Honestly, I would have said before. I would have said, I like our chances because we have a good team and they're super talented and motivated. Now with everything that's going on, it's not even on my mind. I don't even think about it. And honest and also I don't spend that much time thinking about winning. And I think this is the one thing that I'm very fortunate that we've had success and that I've had success, because it's allowed me not to care so much about winning. And it's put the emphasis more on where it should be, and that's growing and the process and the journey and trying to get better every day. And when you have that combined with a little bit of that competitive fire and edge, that's when the best things come. So we're really just hoping to get the opportunity to like play water polo again. We're like, if anything, this experience has made us all appreciate how special it is to be a part of a team and how special it is to be a part of a sport and to be part of a group of individuals that's trying to achieve something bigger than themselves. So that's really what the focus is. It actually kind of reminds me after 2012 and in the Olympics, after we had won the gold, I was in the Olympic Village walking back from eating, and I saw Dennis Kameni across the way, and he's pretty far away, and he goes, "Adam," and I look up, and here's a legend in our sport, right? I look up to the guys, 3 Olympic, and I'm like, oh my God, he knows my name, and he goes, "Congratulations," and I'm like, thanks, feeling very proud, and he goes, "Try to get 3," and I'm like, dude, I'm just happy with 1. I don't need to talk about 3. But that's if you know Kameni, it's a typical Kameni there. He's just like, hey man, we had quite a run there.
Okay, we're going way over time, but I think Phil's going to let us do that, aren't you, Phil? Not answering.
He muted himself.
We're just going to keep going.
Just keep going, Ian.
Adam, you've got such sensible viewpoints about the game. Do you see yourself ever entering into administration?
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Possibly, but I like the idea of having a larger impact. That's part of why I coach. I feel, and I think I could have some impact there. But being part of a team and staying young, dealing with young kids and young adults is pretty fun and energizing. So that might be a bit of a stretch.
Let's see how we go. You'd be welcome over here, I would have thought. Now, let's have a look at our opinion section, which always comes near the end of our interviews. The best female player you have coached?
Oh. Wow.
Are you allowed to say this?
Am I allowed? It's like naming your favorite kid. I don't know. That's really difficult. I mean, a few that come off the top of my head is like obviously a couple on my team right now. I mean, we've had so many good players. I mean, Ashley Johnson is phenomenal. Betsy Armstrong was phenomenal. Maggie Steffens, Kylie Neuschel, Maddie Musselman, Brenda Villa, Natalie Golda, Coralie Simmons. I mean, I could go on and on and on. You're talking about some of the best in the world that's ever played the sport. And they all have, you know, there could be a best shooter, and there could be the best, you know, grinder, and there could be the best teammate. That's my way of saying no, it's impossible for me to answer.
What about the best player you never selected?
Oh, ho ho.
Tough one too.
Wow. Best player. Well, you know, you guys had brought up earlier. Lolo Silver was a player who didn't make the 2012 team, who was talented and was probably talented enough to be part of the process moving forward and maybe make the 2016 team. Another person I have in mind is Juliette Moss, who was, you know, one of my favorite athletes ever. Just an incredible kid, really raw, was getting so much better with the training. She was an alternate in 2012 as well. I wish she would have came back in 2013. She's now a fire. She's in the fire department in Long Beach, and she wanted to move on with her career, but she could have been phenomenal.
She was also a good Balmain player, Adam. We're
yes,
very
she was.
Balmain centric on this show.
Well, Lolo Silva was at Drummoyne when I coached there as well, so we got a bit of a link with these names, Adam.
Yeah, and this is I've cut a lot of great players. It's difficult, especially in the last 2 quads here. It's been difficult to crack this roster because of the talent that I have. So it's everyone that gets a sniff and gets, you know, a part of the team is pretty darn good.
Okay.
Adam, would you look back and say, I wish I hadn't cut that person at all?
No. I feel really confident in the decisions that and maybe in the future it might happen, but I feel really confident about decisions that I've made, at least with the Olympic teams. And you know, you feel awful. You feel like, you know, I think I've told each one of them that you cut at the end. It's not like I still felt like if I were to bring them and not take someone else, I still think we win a gold medal. So that's the tough thing, right? So it's not that's going to make the difference whether you win or not. It's, you know, you're trying to select the best team, and there's so many factors that go into that, you know, and other than just position and the strengths and weaknesses of your team and your other players, and maybe even your opponents. And I haven't regretted a decision. That doesn't mean that it hasn't caused any pain, but it's nice not having to regret anything. That'd be the worst.
And by the way, Lolo Silva holds our National League goal scoring record. She had a phenomenal season. Have ball, will shoot. That was Lolo, and she shot a lot in. 80, nearly 90 goals she scored in limited games. So, you know, she was quite a player. Now,
Doesn't surprise me.
the best female player that you have coached against no Americans.
Well, that's tough as well. I joke with my team all the time, or they joke with me, that I have like they call like an all crush team. So I have an all crush team, supposedly. This is the team that's like, there's always a roster of players that I love. And I would think, I'm trying to think who's on that now. Maybe I shouldn't talk about now. Maybe I should talk back in 2012. So it's because it's not so fresh. But like one of the players that I absolutely love was Zagame, Ziggy from Australia. Like to me, she was just, you know, and I appreciate like the players who are just, maybe they're not always the most talented, but they're the ones that are just, they're feisty, they're tough, they just never stop, they're resilient. you know, she was phenomenal. In my opinion, Ifke van Belkom from Holland, back in that 2012 quad, she was incredible. Sofia Konuk from Russia, I'm sure I'm missing, but they all bring different styles, you know, like Tanya DiMario. I mean, she drove me absolutely mad and nuts sometimes, but God, I mean, brilliant player though, you know, like you didn't love some of the theatrics, but man, the intelligence and the precision and the feistiness is really impressive.
The player you love to hate.
The player.
Player I love to hate. Wow, player I love to hate. I mean, it's usually whoever we're playing that and whoever's doing well. I mean, I've hated Rowie Webster plenty of times.
Yeah.
And nothing against Rowie. Rowie's awesome. I mean, she's a phenomenal talent, and I was going to say great kid. She's an adult now, but you know, watching her play, coached against her in college when she was at Arizona State. So yeah, there's plenty of days where I've hated her. There's, I'm sure she feels the same about me. But all's good. All's good.
I think she's our next guest in a couple of weeks, Adam.
Is she?
You are a big name dropper. Hey, you watch a lot of men's polo. Who's the best male player that you've seen? I know it's difficult.
Ooh, man, who's the best male player that I've seen? Wow. Well, like I have a soft place, and I have a place in my heart for Peroni. Partly because he's my height, and every time I see him, I'm like, dude, how are you doing this, man? It's like, how do you play at this level in this game, in this day and age, at 5'9" it is just. He might argue that he's a little taller than me, but I don't know, man. And he's been doing it for a long time. So again, like to me, it's like not super. That's always the most talented, or and not to say he's not talented, but he's just wicked smart. He's a great leader. He's always hustling. Carries himself with humility too, and big fan of that. We have some guys on our men's team that are good as well. In my opinion, I don't want to make his ego too big, but he keeps working hard and staying humble. Ben Halleck, our young center forward, is one of the best in the world in my mind. And maybe one day he could call himself the best in the world if he keeps working hard. I mean, he's a freak of a talent. I mean, I haven't seen anyone like that in our men's in terms of being a center. Ryan Bailey was the last one, but you could compare him to like a Terry Schroeder type player from back in the day.
Adam, how about the best referee? Don't say Danny.
Oh, again, it depends on the game. The game is so difficult to officiate that it's like, you could be, Danny might disagree here, but you could be great one game, but if you're not focused and not ready, you could have a bad game the next game. I think, again, I appreciate the refs that like Danny. I'm not just saying this because he's on the call. I appreciate the refs who not only are talented and do a good job, but take their job serious and don't put themselves above the game and above myself or the coach or the athletes. They're just trying to help the game along, and those are the ones you don't really notice, which are typically the ones that are the best.
Okay, without time constraints, I've just spotted another really good question, or an interesting one anyhow. Adam, would you ever coach for another country? You're professional. You're a professional coach.
Despite what my country is going through right now, and it's been disheartening to say the least. Doesn't mean I'm not proud to be an American. I'm certainly proud to be an American. I certainly have a lot of pride for my country and the hopes of where I think our country can go. But with that being said, yeah, I mean, I could see myself coaching somewhere else. I think that the difficult thing there is my life is not about me. My life is my wife, and my life is my kids, and that's what probably makes things more challenging than anything. And that doesn't mean, you know, people in America might be watching this and saying, well, you're not being patriotic and you don't love America. Get off, stop with that rhetoric. That's not what that means. That means that I could see myself living. There's great places all over the world that would be fun to live in.
Australia is a nice place, isn't it, hey? We have run out of time. We appreciate your insight into water polo as a sport. You've got so many sensible views, it's not funny. And we do appreciate your time, which is very valuable. Thank you very much for joining us today on The Whistleblower.
Thanks so much for having me. I always love coming to Australia, and I've always appreciated the Aussies. You guys, you know how to compete, and you also know how to have a good time. And I appreciate the humility and sense of humor that most Australians have. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you once again. Gentlemen, it's been an absolutely fantastic show. Danny, Phil, John. Yes, and thank you, Scotty, for that. Don't forget, Whistleblower in a fortnight. I think we've got Phil Rowie Webster coming on, haven't we?
The most hated Australian player by Krikorian, yes.
Love to hate. Love to hate.
Definitely, and she's in lockdown in Melbourne. So, yeah, perfect.
All right, Jim, thanks again. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We've never had so many questions. Thank you to Adam Krikorian once again. Join us next time for The Whistleblower.